Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Business in STEM, Girls for Business and STEM to the Skies June virtual event. Thank you all so much for being here. We are so excited to see everyone. I'm Rachel Wang, and I am the founder and executive director of Girls for Business.
Hi guys, I'm Sophia. I'm one of the co-founders and co-director of operations here at Girls for Business, and we're so excited to see you guys, and thank you guys all for joining.
All right, and sorry.
To our panelists, Dr. Jennifer Parasini, 𝐲𝐡𝐞 𝐁𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐧𝐞, Ms. Jean Lee, and also Shivani Fernando. And without further ado, I will pass it on to Angelica, the Outreach Director of GFB and the host of today's event.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angelica Fried. You might recognize me from all of our Girls for Business events. I'm a Director of Outreach at Girls for Business and also the host of today's event. Before we get started, I did want to pass it over to Annie and Eileen, the co-founders of STEM to the Sky, to also give a brief introduction of themselves before we get into our typical Girls for Business spiel.
Sure, thanks, Angelica. So hey, everyone, I'm Eileen. I'm one of the co-founders of STEM to the Sky.
And I'm Annie. I'm the other co-founder of STEM to the Sky.
So as a brief overview, so STEM to the Sky is a student-led nonprofit organization. We're dedicated to increasing the transparency of different career paths in STEM and also showcasing diversity within these fields to empower middle school and high school students around the world to pursue their STEM aspirations.
Yeah, thanks so much. Going back into what we were talking about with Girls for Business, I wanted to get like a little warm up sort of thing going on. So just to know who's here and sort of just warming up for today's event, if everyone could type your name, grade, and where you're from in the chat, that'd be super great. Sorry, something just flew by my face. I don't know if you guys saw that. Okay. To get started, I'm a rising senior from Maryland in high school, not in college yet, but I'm a rising senior in high school. And I just wanted to say thank you for coming out, everyone in different time zones. I know we have people all over the world from Girls for Business in our international team, and just people on the West Coast, people just making it at really weird times. Thank you guys for coming out. We're super, super thankful for all of your support. We really wouldn't be here without you guys. We're really glad that a lot of you guys are middle schoolers or underclassmen and high schoolers who are really interested in exploring intersections of business and STEM. And we're really proud of you for being that motivated that early on. So go you. And today at the Business in STEM, we hope to inspire, educate, and empower middle and high school girls to explore these different pathways and careers in the many cross sections of business and STEM. And we've invited 4 amazing panelists who will share their journey in their current careers and their advice in considering these intersectional fields and exploring different career pathways. We're real excited for them to share their diverse experiences with you guys. And yeah, I'll get into a rundown of today's event structure. And yeah, it's really cool to see you guys here in the chat. We have people from Japan, people from all over the United States, and a bunch of different ages. So super cool that you guys are all coming together for Girls for Business and STEM to the Sky. And this is also our first partner event. So I think it's really cool that you guys are here for this. And so we'll get into a rundown of today's event structure. First, I'll be briefly introducing Girls for Business and sharing our initiatives with you guys. Annie and Eileen will then be introducing STEM to the Sky a little bit more. And then our panelists will be getting more into their personal introductions and sharing their general experiences and journeys in pursuing business in STEM. Afterwards, we'll segue into the main portion of our event, which is our panel discussion, where our panelists will offer deeper insights on exploring their various fields based on the topics and questions that we receive from you guys in our event RSVP form. And we'll also give you guys the chance to ask questions live during this discussion. So stay tuned for the opportunity to ask live questions to our panelists. And then finally, we'll wrap up at around 7:55 Eastern Standard Time with some panelist contact information for any further inquiries that we couldn't get to today, and also how to get involved with Girls for Business and STEM to the Sky a little bit more. So without further ado, I'll get into a little bit more about our organization, Girls for Business. So Though business applications, they're found in a majority of career industries, it's actually scarcely covered in the traditional K through 12 curriculum, especially in America. And students lack a lot of exposure to important career and personal financial skills when they enter the workforce due to this lack of education. Also, the business workforce is a drastically male-dominated field, and women often lack representation in making important business decisions. So that's where we come in with Girls for Business. We're a student-led 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our mission is to expand business and networking opportunities to all middle and high school girls with a focus on 3 main initiatives. So going into this really briefly, we offer mentorship, resources, and community platforms. So Girls for Business's free mentorship program cycles through 10-week mentorship cycles. Our mentors are experienced college students and business professionals who guide student mentees to explore business careers through Girls for Business curricula. And our next mentorship cycles are ongoing. So we're currently welcoming applications, and Sophia, I think, will be able to put an application link in the chat. We also offer online business resources through our organization. We publish bi-weekly newsletters with business commentaries and also career tips. We have an amazing writing team, and you can sign up for bi-weekly newsletters. Also, in a link that's going to be put in the chat, we have daily graphics, documentaries, and also video resources on social media. And we have an audience of over 3,000 followers. We coordinate monthly business events, such as the one you're attending right now, with an event record of over 10 past panels and an international conference. And finally, to go over our community platforms, we nurture networking connections, and we really emphasize our international community and having bonding with all of our member base. And Girls for Business's ambassador program connects high school ambassadors who collaborate on marketing projects. And we also have a chapter development program, which extends our initiatives into high schools and also state chapters around the world. So there's also an ambassador and starting a high school chapter link that's also in the chat that you can also check out if you're interested. And now, without further ado, I'll also pass it over to Annie and Eileen to introduce STEM to the Sky.
Thanks, Angelica. Yeah, so STEM to the Sky is a student-led nonprofit as well, and we aim to empower middle and high school students to pursue STEM by sharing interviews with STEM professionals and also hosting speaker events like this one. So in the STEM workforce, there is a severe inequity in so many areas. Like women and people of color are extremely underrepresented in many of these fields. And even more heavily so in a lot of computational subjects like engineering, computer science, and physics. So although it's improved in recent years, this gap is still really prevalent, and it's something that we at STEM to the Sky really prioritize in all of our initiatives.
Yes, so like Annie said, STEM to the Sky kind of really does aim to showcase diversity, not only in terms of career paths, but also in the faces of STEM. And how we do this is through interviewing a wide range of different professionals in fields relating to STEM. And actually, in fact, Dr. Jennifer Parasini, who is here with us today, was one of our previous interviewees. So I can actually go ahead and put her interview in the chat if any of you guys are interested in checking that out. If Annie, you could do that, that'd be awesome. But through these interviews, we hope to inspire students all over the world to continue to pursue their STEM aspirations. And obviously, interviews are one of our biggest initiatives here at STEM to the Sky, but we also want to offer more speaker panels like this one in the future as well. And we also want to expand resources for educators as well as for students in the classroom and a whole variety of other things in the future. So if you guys are interested, we also have a monthly newsletter where you guys can subscribe to. We will have more information on that later. But yeah, we're so excited. And then kind of just going over STEM to the Sky's growth through the past 2 years. We've reached 55 countries and 200 different schools around the world. And our team is now 22 people, and we've technically interviewed over 30 different professionals within STEM fields, but we've posted over 25 of them. So yeah, stay tuned for more exciting things. And now we are going to introduce our panelists.
Yeah, so today you will be hearing from Dr. Parasini, who is also, as Eileen mentioned, one of our previous interviewees. And you'll also be hearing from Jean Lee, who works at Capital One.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And you'll also be hearing from Shabini Fernando and also Ishita Huga, who is also a recurring panelist at Girls for Business. So our panelists will be introducing themselves and sharing their general experiences a little more in the next few slides, so you can all get to know them a little more personally. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Dr. Parasini.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. This is really exciting. And thank you. I guess I'm going first here. So as you all mentioned, I did STEM to the Sky before a quick interview, which was a lot of fun. And if you heard it, I am a neuroscientist and entrepreneur, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Neurovation Lab. So we're developing a diagnostic and treatment for post-traumatic stress. Before that, I went to college at Barnard College in New York City, and I did my PhD in behavioral neuroscience at UCLA. I made the trek back home to New York as quickly as possible, did a quick postdoctoral fellowship at Columbia University, and in 2016, I founded my company. And I do a few other things. I have my hands on a lot of different things. So I'm also on the board of directors of a wonderful nonprofit, Women in Learning. I feel like I have the gears turning for some collaborations in the future. Women in Learning is a nonprofit that really helps to advance women's careers in science. I also am on the board of directors of my own nonprofit, PTSD Recovery of America. And I'm also heavily involved still with the Barnard. I am the chair of the Barnard Entrepreneurs Network, or BNET, and I'm also in the Leadership Council of Barnard's Athena Center for Leadership.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parasini. Now I'd like to pass it off to Jean.
Sure, happy to go. So I started my career in science. I did my bachelor's degree at Columbia University in chemistry, and I followed that up by doubling down in OChem at Caltech. I worked with Dr. Robert H. Grubbs, who was the 2005 Nobel laureate in chemistry. He unfortunately passed away last year. After my PhD, I did a little bit of work in startups, but then made kind of a hard left turn into management consulting. And worked at BCG for almost 8 years, primarily at the intersection of beauty, fashion, and retail. I spent a little bit of time actually outside of BCG as the national cosmetics merchant for CVS. So that was super fun. I got to kind of decide and design every lipstick sold in our private label shop through CVS. I then went on to lead our digital teams here at Capital One in small business, and now I have accountability for our brand, marketing, ventures lending, and sales teams. So a little bit of a combination of a full funnel of brand, marketing, and sales. I also serve as accountable executive for our diversity, inclusion, and belonging here at Capital One, as well as our undergraduate recruiting. I live in Northwest DC in Columbia Heights with my partner and our cat.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to now pass it off to Shabini.
Hi, I'm Shavini Fernando, the founder and CEO of 𝐒𝐡𝐞. I started that actually only in 2017-18, the research. But before that, I was a professor at Australian University for about till 2005. So I think it's about 9 years. And also a senior project manager for IT firms for software development project. So my own background is in computer science mainly, and I have my undergraduate degree in computer science from England. And also, I think I didn't send it to you, I have my master's in computer science from UNSW Sydney and MBA from 𝐒𝐡𝐞 Australia. And then in 2015, I came to USA because I got diagnosed with 𝐸𝐴𝐻 syndrome. And after coming here, I came on 3-month leave from work. But after coming here, they said, oh, you can't fly back home. So I literally had to start my life here from the scratch. And as you know, no matter how qualified you are, how many years of work experience you have, it's not easy to get a job in US and get a work visa. So I started doing another master's at Georgetown in communication technology, so that it's literally an intersection between business and the computer science, which I have studied before. And then after that, at Georgetown, because of my condition, I literally started 𝐲𝐶𝐞 as a solution for myself, but now it's about to launch in October, and we are going out initially for fitness, and we are going through FDA to release it for the medical market. But overall, I was a virtual reality and a game developer turned into, you can say, a medtech developer.
Yeah, thank you so much, 𝐕𝐸. That's extremely inspiring, and we're really glad to have you here speaking today. And then moving on, our last panelist, Ishita, I'll pass it to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ishita. Currently, I go to UT Austin. I'm an MIS major and a marketing minor. So I am in the business school. And what I'm doing right now is I'm in New York City, interning at Merge API, which is a tech startup. And I'm essentially a growth intern, which basically means that I'm working a lot with our product post sales, figuring out how we can retain our customers and how to help them the most with their needs, because it's an extremely technical product. So a lot of my job is just understanding the product on my own and then helping other people with it as well. Before that, I was interning at 𝐓𝐡𝐞, which is a mental health app down in Austin. I was doing growth product management. So again, like a lot of data analytics and understanding how to grow the app and the product altogether. And then before that, again, I did some more data analytics at 𝐓𝐶, which was in my hometown in the Bay Area. And at UT, we have a consulting organization called 180 Degrees Consulting, where I'm doing a lot of nonprofit consulting work. So it's completely pro bono. So I do a lot of marketing and tech consulting within that organization as well. Fun facts about me: I am a dancer, love dancing, and really enjoy fashion and traveling. So I've been living in the Bay Area, Austin, and New York within like the past 2 years. In New York right now. And then what I plan on doing later on post-grad is working some sort of intersection between business and technology, product management, product marketing, stuff like that. But yeah, that's a little about me.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our panelists for sharing. We will now be transitioning to our panel discussion, which is sort of the main portion of today's event, where we'll be able to dive deeper into more of their professional experiences and different perspectives and different experiences in all of these intersections of business and STEM. So I think if we have the screen share off so we can kind of see everyone. First, we'll be starting off with a couple of the most frequently asked questions and requested topics from you guys in our RSVP form. And then we'll be, sorry, my voice is going away a little. And then we'll be transitioning to our live portion. So you guys will be able to ask some live questions either in the chat or by unmuting yourself later about halfway through our discussion time. So just sort of, if you have anything in mind, make sure to save those for later when we have our live question section. And so without further ado, we'll first go into our RSVP questions. I guess one of our most frequently asked questions to all of our panelists, and by the way, all of our panelists feel free to sort of piggyback off of each other or just all answer the questions asked. Our first question is, what made you decide that your educational / career path was for you, or sort of just how did you come into what you do now? And whoever wants to start first, go ahead, and then you guys can all sort of take turns answering.
I can answer if you want. I literally, you will laugh at me, you will figure out my age. I got my first computer when there was no Windows in 1994. And I just fell in love with it. But that was actually not what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to be a pilot. But then there was no Google at that time. And then when I was looking for information, someone said there's a height requirement, and I'm only 5'8". So then after that, I was in love with computers. I was like playing around with GW Basic, and just as Windows was introduced, I literally already started developing on things with GW Basic and all that, like then Visual Basic, C programming, all that on my own. I had to learn everything on my own. People laugh. I still have the black books, which was what like Google for us back then. The C Java black book, C black book, Visual Basic black book, massive black book. So then since I couldn't be a pilot, I figured this is what I love after that. So I straight away started looking for schools, because in Sri Lanka at that time, they were not like properly doing computer science. It was too early. So then that's how I went into computer science. But it was weird. There was only 3 girls in my class doing computer science at that time. It was all guys. And then from all 3, 2 left. And everyone was waiting actually to see when I would leave. And I was the only girl who graduated with about a 60 group of men. And they actually thought I won't survive. But I actually survived because I wanted to prove them that I would survive.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's extremely inspiring. And yeah, it says a lot about just sort of like the how male dominated the STEM and business field are, like in even just either of those fields, and also the intersection as well. Does any of do any of the other panelists want to also share more about their journeys too? We can just sort of like popcorn.
I can go. Yeah, you know, I always was interested in science, even when I was a little kid. I think in terms of what I study now, which is PTSD, I was very heavily influenced by events in my personal life, as well as the September 11th attacks. I am a lifelong New Yorker, and where I grew up, which is about 30 minutes outside of Manhattan, we had such a high number of first responders lose their lives in the days after the attack. And at the same time, unrelatedly, I had lost my mother and my grandfather, all within the same month. And so for me, it was sort of this case study of like, I get to watch some people really sort of struggle after a tragedy, and then some people really develop great coping mechanisms. And I wanted to understand what was going on in the brain to make us act so differently. To make a long story short, I studied neuroscience in college, and I did my PhD at UCLA studying a preclinical model of PTSD. So it was really just my personal events in my early life that sort of led me down this path.
I'll go next, and I'll confuse everyone with something very nonlinear. If the question is, how did I decide like my career path? There was like no one moment. What I do now has almost nothing to do with what I did at BCG, which has almost nothing to do with what I did in my PhD. I think for me, my career has been made up of a lot of left turns based on what I wanted in that moment in time, what I was excited about, and what path I thought I was going to be on. The good news is that I got to like remake that decision every couple of years. When I was 17, I thought I wanted to be an 𝐓𝐞𝐞 professor, and I went down that path. I woke up one day at Caltech. I was 1 year into a 5-year PhD, and I was like, fuck, I hate this. And so I spent the next 4 years trying to figure it out. And where I landed was I didn't want to be an 𝐓𝐞𝐞 professor. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Made a joke with my PhD advisor that I wanted to be the CEO of Sephora someday. And he said, how do we get you there? I didn't quite land at CEO of Sephora, but most of the time I spent at BCG was in sort of the intersection of beauty and technology and digital marketing. And it was a really fun career for 7.5 years. But then one day I woke up and I realized that the industry that I was in was adding value to society, but it wasn't quite scratching my itch of what I wanted to do with my time long-term. So I decided it was time for another mountain and made another hard left. I don't think anyone could have predicted, or I don't think anyone who asked, 22-year-old Jean, do you think you're going to be, chief marketing officer at a bank someday? I would have said yes. I think at 22, I thought I was going to be an 𝐓𝐞𝐞 professor. And again, at like 28, 29, I thought I wanted to be, CEO of Sephora. Right now, I love the role that I'm in. I unfortunately have had two really great mentors in my life pass away in the past 6 months. First, my PhD advisor, and more recently, last week, the president of the division that I'm in. I always used to say, I want to lead under Mike. I want Mike to be the CEO of Capital One. I want to be, the next Mike. And so there's this like reassessment again of, every couple of years I ask myself the question, like, what do I want to do? What gets me excited about getting out of bed? What skill set do I have? What impact do I want to make on society? So there is like no single linear answer to like my story, but hopefully that sheds some light to those on the line that you can kind of remake the decision every couple of years if you want.
Yeah, I think I relate a lot to Jane's answer as well. I mean, I'm like very much starting off with my career and like in the middle of my education, but figuring out kind of like where I wanted to study and what path I kind of wanted to go down was a lot of process of evaluation for me. It was a lot of like, okay, I'm going to try this and I know I don't like it. So at the end of the day, like what is left for me? So I knew like I wanted to be in tech somewhere, but I also knew like I didn't want to be sitting behind a screen for the rest of my career. And I wanted to be like very hands-on and very involved with people. And that's kind of where I took in this like business and tech cross section. But even now I can't like confidently say like this is going to be something I do for the rest of my life. It's just what makes me happy right now. And I think I'm going to continue to change that as I go down like college and then again like getting a full-time role post-grad and all of that. I feel like life and like just figuring out your career is a process of like understanding what you're passionate about and how that changes and how you can make an impact with that so that you stay consistent with what you're doing. And that's kind of the outlook I'm taking on a lot of what I'm going with right now.
Great. Thank you so much for all of your answers. I think it just speaks to so much, like there's so much insight from all of your answers of how like diverse the pathways are to these different intersections of both like tech, STEM related careers, and also business. And I think Eileen will have our next RSVP question for you guys.
Yes, thanks, Angelica. So I guess a lot of our audience was actually wondering what the exact kind of like breakdown of STEM to business is like in your career. So would you say your career is kind of more focused around STEM, whether that's like research or, computer science or kind of like whatever you studied in your STEM background, if you're coming from a STEM background, because I know some of you guys kind of pivoted towards business, but some of you guys are the other way around, or is what you do now kind of more centered around business, like in terms of management, finance, etc. And if you guys have any insight on that.
Yeah, so background in science, I do almost 100% of the business now. I'm not in the lab anymore. I really just run the day-to-day of the company. The one bit of science that I still do is that we work with contract research organizations. So that's our way of keeping our company lean. We hire other scientists basically to run the experiments we want. So I still get to sort of analyze their data when it comes back, speak to the scientists, need to understand what it is they're doing and help them troubleshoot if necessary. But on a day-to-day basis, it's very little science.
For me, I can say I actually did my MBA because the school asked me to teach management information system to business students. So it was pretty much like teaching Greek to Spanish. They couldn't understand what I was saying. So I did my MBA so that I understand their language, so I can dumb it down to their level, so that I'm not talking in complete, like all terms like gibberish that they don't understand, that I can explain it in a way that they understand. That's the whole purpose of me doing the MBA. But now it's actually very useful for me now that I'm doing a startup, because everything I learned, I'm actually now only practically applying to the company. So I'm hardly doing any computer science work now. I say I'm like doing another PhD because I'm actually learning so much. But at the same time, because of my experience in the computer science and project management for the past 20 years, it made it easier for me to manage the whole startup work, to get everything done in a very agile way, so that everything's done parallelly and then we combine them together when it's done. So that's why we were able to manage completing all the hardware development, 5 iterations in just 3 years, and even like to go through the whole FDA process. And another thing is, especially like Jennifer said, when you're working with contractors, they don't know I have a software background, but because I have a software background, I know when they're trying to, like, when they're not being honest about the work that they're doing, it's very easy for me to understand. I'm like, oh, no, that's not how it works. Like, you're literally trying to fool me. No, that doesn't make sense. So, and then when I tell them only, they're like, oh, you have been doing this. I'm like, yeah, I have 15 years, more than 15 years work experience. And then so I don't tell them that this is what I've been doing, but it makes it easier for me to understand whether my contractors and everyone who's quoting me for work and all are actually being honest, and whether they know to walk the talk or whether they are just bluffing about what they are capable of doing. So it's not directly used, but indirectly it's very used with my work at the moment.
Great. Did Jean or Ishita, do you guys want to share anything? If not, we can move on to the next question.
Yeah, I can share a little bit about just kind of my STEM experience, but I think like the role I'm in right now and just roles I've taken on in the past have been within the technology space and within tech companies, but the position that I'm in isn't exactly like the most technical part of it. So I think that's like how my involvement in it kind of got to be, because I realized like I didn't want to be very much like coding or like sitting behind a screen, but I realized I did want to be integrated with something that was going to be like the future. And I think a lot of technology is that. And so my role has kind of been like understanding where within the STEM world do I like kind of lie. And that's also why I picked the internship I'm at right now, to just kind of understand like, okay, I can be within a space that is growing, that is going to be the future, but also a space that is going to help me with my career trajectory and like some place where I can grow as well.
So like a lot of the others, my day-to-day has almost no actual what you would define as STEM, but I think it's a little bit of how you define STEM. So if you define STEM as utilizing the scientific method to understand the hypothesis you want to test, I would say I do that every day. A lot of marketing is very, very quantitative, and you are constantly able to do A/B tests. So if you count that as STEM, I would say every day there's a little STEM in my life. It's how we think about our marketing. It's how we think about our media mix modeling. It's how my team deploys about $500 million of marketing money out there. I hope they use some scientific method and some quantitative analytics. But in terms of, research and bleeding edge technology, that is not my day-to-day.
Gotcha. Yeah, I definitely think it's interesting how the quantitative aspects of business kind of can be considered STEM, like you said. And it's also really interesting and valuable to have that like technical STEM background to be leading like the business side within a tech or biotech company. So thank you guys so much for sharing that. Angelica, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for sharing those insights. I think one of our other popular questions was, what's it like to hold leadership positions? Any sort of leadership positions you've had throughout your career and your respective industries? Do you have any advice for aspiring leaders, especially young girls who are seeking sort of higher positions in these fields that you're in?
From my experience, I can say a lot of people undermine us, which is where women. For me, whenever I went for now at this level, like before, I can say like whenever I had an idea, they used to say, oh, that won't work. But then another male counterpart will say the same thing in a different way. And then they would be like, oh, genius idea. I was like, isn't that the same thing I just said? But they were like, oh, really? And then they will still disregard that. And now with this startup thing, I'm the solo founder. I don't have a co-founder. So I had a lot of VCs telling me that I'm not the most suitable person to do this, that I need a male co-founder. And I was like, why? What is he going to find? Everything is founded already. And so they will try to undermine. It's still there. Like, although we are doing really good, women are doing really good nowadays, but still there are certain times people would say that you are not the most suitable person to do it. Whereas if another male counterpart goes and says the same thing, they will take it as a really good idea. So it's just, don't let people like put that down, make you like feel down. Take that as like a challenge. That's what I do all the time. I'm like, oh, I will prove you that I can do this. And that's how I have literally done every time when someone tries like step on me, and because I'm a woman. But we are quite good at many things. We are good at multitasking. We're actually better at most of the things. So don't let others get on you, and just keep doing what you're doing. People will call you crazy. Just don't take it to the head. Take it from this year, put it out from that year, and just do what you love doing.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. Do any of our other panelists have any other words of advice to add?
So I'll start by like define your terms moment. Like I'll share with you what I think of when I think of the word leadership. Leadership is just power. And how does power happen? There's positional power and there's relational power. Positional power being you are put in charge of something. You have the authority to either be a decision maker on capital or a decision maker on humans. So you either lead a large P&L and budget, or you lead a big group of human beings. But that's a sort of top-down positional leadership. Someone has like anointed you in charge of, $500 million of marketing or like 100 humans. There's the relational power of, do people actually want to follow you? Do people actually want you to deploy their capital? There's someone has told a bunch of people you're their boss and you're their leader. And then there's the leadership of people really respect how you are and the way you engage with them and what you're able to provide them. So my advice on leadership is don't seek out that first thing. That first thing will come over time. Through a very long career, and careers are very long these days, that sort of positional power will accrue to those who seek out that second thing. Look for relational power. How do you elevate others? How do you put good ideas out into the market? Dollars and followership and other humans will come, and that sort of positional power will come with it. The big, like, with great power is great responsibility. Think about the second thing first. Think about who wants to follow you and what can you do to make an impact on society, and the other thing will come.
Yeah, I 100% agree with her, because during COVID, I couldn't pay a single person in my team because we didn't get funds. But they all worked. We have 11 people team. They all work for free. And I was able to pay them only from last year, like mid-year. And then they even refused to take what I couldn't pay them. They said, no, that's fine. So the other day, someone told me, your team must be crazy. How come you got them to work? I said, it's just, I can say I have an awesome team, right? So they must be believing in me for something, right? For them to work for 1 year without a pay. So if you are doing the right thing, and if you know you are doing the right thing, people will actually follow you and they will help you. They will support you no matter what others say. So as long as you have that tribe who goes with you I think that's enough for you to later on get the funding and everything you need to get your work done.
Definitely super important. Keep those insights in mind. I think Jennifer and Ishita, if you don't have anything to add, we can move on to our live discussion portion, where we'll be taking some live questions from our attendees. Sorry, I'm just going to open the chat really quick. So anyone who wants to ask any live questions right now, feel free to drop them in the chat. And I think, Rachel, you did have a question you wanted to start us off with, so you can go ahead and ask that right now.
Yes, I do have a question for everyone. First of all, thank you all so much for sharing all of your experiences. It just absolutely blows me away by how passionate and how well-versed you guys are in all of your expertise, both in STEM and business. So my question is, for me personally, I'm gearing more towards pursuing a career in business, particularly in the management and finance industries. And I've heard a lot about how STEM career skills or just STEM backgrounds can help you a lot in terms of getting like a boost up in applications, and also just generally having that understanding when going into more specialized jobs or careers. So my question is, are there any sort of skill sets or any like courses that any of you panelists would recommend taking or researching more into?
I think I can speak a little bit in terms of courses. When I came into college the first time, I was very also like, I'm going to be in the business school, so it's going to be a lot of soft skills that I'm going to be learning. But then I realized like those skills aren't as transferable as the rest of what STEM provides you. Like in the business school specifically, it's easier to get like finance classes or even like MIS classes rather than the science one. So that was kind of the route I ended up taking. And like what's great about when you are in a program like with business or whatever, it's that you can kind of build your entire curriculum for yourself. So it's up to you how many classes you take when it comes to like soft skills versus when it comes to technical, more transferable skills. And you can get that through finance, accounting, MIS courses. You can even take classes outside of your own school. And so I think like going into college, having the mindset of like, I can basically pick out how these next 4 years go, and I can kind of like lay that out for myself to see in what best possible way am I going to have skills that are going to last me when I go into my career. Because a lot of times when you are applying into like finance or consulting, you're given a lot of mathematical questions or a lot of case study interviews where you just kind of have to logically understand the breakdown of things. And that really comes when you start taking more STEM related classes, because it's just a whole different way of thinking. And I think rather than the exact like knowledge you get from those classes, it's more about the expansion of your brain in a different sector, and you start learning things that you wouldn't usually think about aside from STEM classes, and it really challenges you, which is really great when it comes to you applying to things when you go into your career. And I think that's what helped me a lot as well.
Thank you so much, Ishita. I definitely agree with the whole mindset thing. I think I've taken a few like more, I guess, like STEM, like physics, hard mathematics classes at my school. And I do feel like that has like shifted the way that I kind of perceive different problem solving or critical thinking skills. So I definitely will look into those in college.
Yeah, thank you so much for the answer. Now going on to a question that I received privately, and it's also been asked in our RSVP questions, I guess, to everyone in general. I think what this is trying to say is like what sort of like how do you overcome like challenges you face academically, and what helps you stay motivated? I guess this is more general, just like with academics and maybe also just career in general, but maybe like specifically in your fields, what are some business or STEM challenges that you've faced and how have you overcome those? And this is directed to just everyone.
Yeah, I can start. You know, running a startup is never without issues. I think it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I learned that I needed to grow a very tough skin at the start of it. One thing that was the most difficult for me starting off is going to investors and hearing no. Because to me, I was in my early 20s. I thought, wow, this is so great. Like, look at what I discovered. Everybody should like it, right? Everybody should want to throw money at this problem, but it's not true. That was one of the most difficult things that I went through. A lot of tears shed, and someone else said, hearing your male counterpart getting all the accolades. That's definitely happened to me as well. So we're just growing a tough skin and realizing that people's passions aren't necessarily shared with yours. Investors just want a return on investment. That's essentially what it is. Whereas I care about curing PTSD. And a lot of other difficulties are going to be even bigger than that. They're less personal. During COVID was one of the hardest times for the company. We thought we were going to potentially shut down. Luckily, we were able to get funding through the Department of Defense, which was really exciting for us. But just trying to figure out, next steps and moving forward and being able to pivot if necessary was another major challenge that we had to go through.
Yeah, I totally agree with her. I pitched to 357 investors for my first round. Yeah, and it took 1.5 years for that. And now I'm closing the second round. It's just been 2 months and I haven't pitched any. So the coin flips, it's always the first time that's hard, because like I said, people will not believe you. They will say, why are you the right person to do this? Even though you've been doing this, I'm literally a patient. I understand how this works and why it's needed. And yet they're like, why it's needed? I literally had to tell them, if you don't have enough oxygen in your body, you die. I literally had to tell that line to some of the investors who are literally questioning me, why is oxygen monitoring important? And no one was willing to believe me until we got our first funding after Stanford and MIT published 2 papers saying, please keep monitoring your oxygen level throughout if you have any COVID symptoms. And please do not come to the ER because your Apple Watch says so. Please buy a medical grade device. Because till then they were like, why can't Apple do this? Even no matter how many times I said, you can't measure medical grade on a wrist. No one was believing me until Stanford and MIT published a paper. So it's going to be really tough. Like if Menna asks 5 questions, you will be asked 100 questions. That's how it is. But like Jennifer said, you need to build that thick skin to face everything. Some days in the evening, I feel like hitting my head on a wall. Like I pitched to about 8 people and all 8 says the same thing. And I'm like, what am I doing? Why did I say no to that 6-figure nice job offer letter I got? But then at that time, just find something to chill and then get back and you will be able to do it. And the other thing, we are quite good at handling stress and managing all that. And also, like I said, multitasking. So because of that, I think we are able to filter out and take all the stuff we want because we are built for that from small days. That's what we women do most of the time. So we are capable of doing. It's just don't let anyone put you down. That's all I say. I always like take it from this year, keep what I want and put out the others. And always try to find, they say your vibe attracts your tribe. So try to find that tribe first. And once you get that tribe in, the rest of the people will follow you. So it's just that getting that tribe first is the hard part. But once that is in, then after that it's easy.
Thank you guys so much for answering that question. We do have like 5-ish minutes, so I do want to try to get through some more questions quickly, and we can have maybe just like more brief responses to these other two in the chat. We have one that's about if you could do something differently. I guess this kind of has to do with the one we just asked about, like an obstacle to overcome. But just to all of our panelists, is there anything throughout your pathways that you wish you could maybe fix or maybe like redo?
I would say I wish when I was in high school, I was more of a go-getter in certain situations. I think that's something that I learned a lot in college and just started doing a lot more, because coming into college, you realize like no one really knows you. You don't really know anyone. And so you can do whatever you want. It's a whole new life. But like in high school, I was very scared of judgment, or just like, is this even for me? Am I going to be good enough? Because there were so many people that were good at so many things. And so I think what I would encourage all of you to do is in like middle school, high school, take those opportunities that scare you, and to put yourself out there into things that you don't think you would be good at, or things that you're afraid of doing because of judgment, because those honestly end up being the best opportunities that you take, and then they have the best outcomes regardless of whether or not you end up pursuing them. I feel like those are what teach you the most and help you pursue other things as well.
I think, to be honest, STEM-related salaries are actually better than the others. So that's something I have found when I'm trying to figure out the payrolls for my team. So definitely, yeah, if you have the STEM and the business both the intersection and the experience, it's easy for you to get a job as well, and you will get a higher pay scale as well. That's what I've learned trying to do the payrolls for my team.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you for just moving on to the next question, because I was going to ask that next. And if anyone has anything to add, you can also just sort of pop it in the chat in response, since we're a little bit short on time. I guess one of these important ones that we just got, which was also asked in the RSVP form, is just, do you guys have any resources you would recommend? Maybe not even just in STEM, but also just business or maybe professional experience in general, that you would recommend, maybe books or podcasts, helping with your career or your educational journeys?
I can tell a book. There's a book. It's about the entire IBM whole case study, Who Says Elephant Can't Fly. I think it's a nice story, literally, on how to take challenges as well. And you can literally, it's not just the business case, but you can actually relate it to your life. So it's a good book to read, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Do you think you could pop it in the chat just so we can like save it for everyone in the chat? And also thank you so much, Jean, for the podcast recommendations. I think since we're at 7:55, unfortunately, we can't get to all of our questions, but we will be sharing our contact information of panel